You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. And on today's episode of the podcast, we are reviewing match number 36 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 between England and Australia. And it was a very good victory from Australia in the end, winning by 33 runs to win 5 games in a row to nearly book a place in the semi-finals of this World Cup. And they found a way to win this game, Australia. They struggled a little bit with the bat, but got to a competitive total of 286, which was enough in the end. And also the bowlers did their job to bowl out England for 253 and win this game. So Australia tracking along nicely in this World Cup. As for England, it was another disappointing defeat and loss. Their Cricket World Cup nightmare continues, and they've got a lot of soul searching to do. So in this episode today, we're going to talk about how both Australia and England went about things, where the game was won and lost, and where to next for both teams as we progress in this Cricket World Cup for 2023. So there's lots to talk about on today's episode of the podcast. Let's have a look at the match summary from match number 36 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 between England and Australia from the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. Australia batted first and made 286 all out in 49.3 overs. Marnus Labuschagne top scored with 71. Chris Woakes took 4 wickets for England. England, in reply, needed to chase down 287 for victory. They were bowled out for 253 in 48.1 overs. Ben Stokes top scored with 64, and Adam Zampa took 3 wickets for Australia. Australia won by 33 runs, and Adam Zampa was named Player of the Match. What were the key moments and key factors from match number 36 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 between England and Australia? The partnerships of 75 for the 3rd wicket between Smith and Labuschagne, 61 for the 5th wicket between Labuschagne and Green, and 45 for the 6th wicket between Stoinis and Green rescued Australia from trouble and to guide Australia to 286 all out. Adam Zampa's innings of 29 and the partnership he had with Mitchell Starc of 38 for the 9th wicket helped Australia to post 286 after they were 8 for 247. Starc picking up the first 2 wickets of the England innings, removing Johnny Bairstow for a golden duck, first ball of the innings, and Joe Root enabled Australia to bowl out England for 253 to win by 33 runs. Those were the key moments and key factors from match number 36 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 between England and Australia from the Narendra Modi Stadium. Let's talk about how both England and Australia performed in match number 36 of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 at the Narendra Modi Stadium. And first of all, let's talk about England's performance with bat and ball. And let's start with the England batters and their performance in this match against Australia. Bairstow, a duck. Malan, 50. Root, 13. Stokes, 64. Butler, 1. Ali, 42. Livingston, 2. And that's how the England batters went about things in this game against Australia. Bowled out for 253, England, chasing 287, summed up their batting in this World Cup and also in this match. It's been pretty poor, inconsistent. Not the England team we know with the bat. They're more aggressive, positive intent, but the batting in this World Cup from England hasn't been positive or aggressive, as we've seen over the last 4 years up until they won the 2019 World Cup. And for England, they'll be disappointed not to chase down 286. The conditions were pretty much in their favour. The dew was coming down. That helped. in terms of scoring runs. The ball comes on a lot better, skids on, the outfield's soaked. So England had everything in their favour, but poor shot selection, loss of wickets at regular intervals, lack of partnerships cost England to chase down these runs against Australia with the bat. They had some pretty good partnerships, 84 for the third wicket between Malan and Stokes, 63 for the fifth wicket between Ali and Stokes. Late order partnerships of 30 for the eighth wicket between Woakes and Willie, 37 for the ninth wicket between Rashid and Woakes. They tried their best to try and get the runs for England, but it wasn't to be in the end, and they fell short. Ben Stokes batted well for his 64, but not at his fluent best. He played some good shots. He hit a few sixes off Travis Head with his part-time off-spin. But Ben Stokes struggled and battled hard for fluency and timing. You would think with him at the crease, along with Darwin Malan and that partnership they added of 84 for the third wicket, which was going pretty well when they were at the crease together, you would think that partnership would have got England over the line if it continued. But unfortunately it didn't. Malan got out, then Ben Stokes got out, and then pretty much after that England sort of lost wickets and lost their way. Speaking of Darwin Malan, good 50, but couldn't go on with it. So I think England would be disappointed with their batting yet again. Also disappointed that Stokes and Malan didn't go on and get a big century to try and win the game for them and chase down these runs. But it pretty much sums up England's batting in this whole World Cup. It's been a little bit puzzling. Haven't been the same England team that we know in one-day cricket when it comes to batting. A team that likes to chase, backs themselves, and plays with positive intent and aggressive approach. And it wasn't to be in this game or in this World Cup. So their batting overall was indifferent, and they'll be disappointed again not to get the job done. Let's talk about England's bowlers and their performance in this match against Australia. A wicket each for Willie and Livingston, no wickets for Ali, 2 wickets for Wood and Rashid, and 4 wickets for Woakes, and that's how the England bowlers performed in this match against Australia. I thought England's bowling was pretty good in this match. They did well to bowl Australia out for 286 in the end. To keep them under a total of 300 was a good effort. But they could have bowled Australia out for a lot less than 286. I think that's where England could have done a lot better with the ball. The partnership between Adam Zampa and Mitchell Starc for the 8th wicket, 38 Zampa and Starc added for the 8th wicket, cost England a few runs in the end towards the back end of the Australian innings. They didn't really finish off the job quickly enough. And they were able to bowl Australia out. But those vital runs, Adam Zampa scored 29 off 19, 4 boundaries in that innings. Australia were 8 for 247 when Adam Zampa joined Mitchell Starc at the crease. So England could have bowled Australia out for under 250, maybe just over 250, and it would have been a good result. But in the end, Australia managed to get up to 286, and that sort of cost England a little bit in terms of just trying to finish off the job quickly with the Australian innings. Apart from that, they did well to take wickets at regular intervals to keep Australia at bay and put Australia under pressure during the innings. Chris Woakes bowled well for his 4 wickets. He's had a bit of a tough World Cup, but he's come back in the last few games. Bowled well against India, and now he's bowled well here against Australia. The other bowlers did their job. Willie chipped in. Mark Wood, not at his best, but he picked up a couple of wickets. Livingston chipped in with 1. Moeen Ali bowled okay. Adil Rashid bowled well for his 2 wickets. So, yeah, it was a pretty good bowling display from England, which they'll be happy about, but they'll be disappointed that they weren't able to finish off the job quickly enough in terms of those extra runs that Zampa put on with Starc in that 9th wicket partnership, which pretty much cost England in the end. But apart from that, their bowling was okay. England They bowled pretty well against India in the last game, and they've bowled well here against Australia. So at least for England, even though their batting is not working properly and not firing on all cylinders, at least their bowling is starting to come together, and they're starting to put in some consistent performances. But there's still a lot of work with their bowling as well. So overall, England's bowling was okay, but it could have been better. Let's talk about Australia's performance with both bat and ball and how they went about things with the bat and with the ball. Let's start off with the batters. First of all, the batting side of things. Head 11, Warner 15, Smith 44, Labuschagne 71, Inglis 3, Green 47, Stoinis 35, and that's how the batters performed in this match for Australia. Australia's batting wasn't fluent in this game against England. They struggled a bit. They did well to reach 286, and in the end, 286 was a good score. The top order failed. Head and Warner didn't get off to a flyer like they have done against New Zealand in the last game. They got out quickly and early. The top order didn't quite fire today. So responsibility on the middle order, which has been struggling to try and get Australia out of a bit of a jam. And they did well. They did okay. It wasn't the most fluent batting performance from the middle order because they've had their problems over the last few months for Australia. But they were able to get to a score which was competitive at the end. Marnus Labuschagne batted well for his 71. Cameron Green lacking confidence, but he gained confidence by scoring 47. And Marcus Stoinis scored 35. So they did get some good contributions there, but they could have been a lot more in terms of bigger scores. But in the situation of the match and where Australia were placed, I think Australia would be pretty content that the middle order was starting to fire. Not quite at 100%, but they were able to post a score which was competitive. And obviously Adam Zampa's late order hitting, 29 off 19, proved to be the difference for Australia in the bat in terms of getting them to a competitive total. When Adam Zampa came in, Australia were 8 for 247 at the 45th over. So Australia were in danger of getting bowled out for maybe under 250, maybe just over 250, and especially being bowled out under 50 overs and not batting out the 50 overs. But Adam Zampa came in, did what he did with Mitchell Starc. It was a very handy partnership of 38 for the 9th wicket. And that pretty much got Australia up to that 286 score, whereas they could have been bowled out for a lot less than 286, maybe 250 or below, as I mentioned before. So that was pretty good from Zampa. Not noted for his batting, Adam Zampa, but it was good to see him contribute towards the end. So there's still areas to improve on with Australia's batting. Obviously, the top order is starting to fire. We've seen that in the last few games. But today, the top order didn't fire. The middle order had to stand up and do its job. And I think that was a good thing in this game. I think it's a good thing that the middle order had to take the responsibility. Can't rely on Warner and Head to get you off to a good start like it was against New Zealand, where they added 170 odd for the first wicket. Obviously, the top order will fire some days. Other days, like in this game against England, the top order won't fire, and you have to stand up as a middle order to get the job done. So there's still a lot of areas for Australia to work on. Obviously, there was no Glenn Maxwell. There was no Mitchell Marsh in the batting lineup today. Obviously, missing out for obvious reasons, as we know. Mitchell Marsh for family reasons and personal reasons. And Glenn Maxwell because of concussion after his accident with the golf cart falling off that. So Australia had to tinker around with their batting order in this game against England. They brought in Green and Stoinis, and they had to do some jigging there. But nonetheless, they were tested, which is good. There are a few areas, as I mentioned, to improve on. But they got the job done in the end. They got to a score which was competitive, and it was enough. So not quite firing all cylinders yet, but they're just starting to get things together and just starting to get their mojo back. And also another thing for Australia, I know it's a little thing, but it was the same thing that happened against New Zealand, is that they didn't quite bat out the 50 overs. They fell 3 balls short of batting the 50 overs. The same thing happened against New Zealand in the last game. So something that Australia need to look at, the little 1%ers, make sure you bat out the 50 overs, maximise every ball that you can to score as many runs as you can. So just something for Australia to work on going into the next game against Afghanistan. But apart from that, in the end, they were able to get the job done. The batting display was indifferent. It wasn't at their fluent best, but they were able to find a way to get the job done. And that's the main thing. So that's the batting. Let's talk about the Australian bowlers and how they performed in this match against England. 3 wickets for Zampa, 2 wickets for Stark, Hazlewood and Cummins, no wickets for Head, and 1 wicket for Stoinis. And that's how the Australian bowlers performed in this match against England. I thought Australia's bowling was pretty good. I think it was a much improved performance compared to the game against New Zealand. I thought this was a pretty good performance with the ball. They did well to defend 286 and bowl England out for 253. Good effort given that the dew factor was in play. The ground was pretty much wet. The ball was wet. Very difficult as a bowling group to try and deal with that, but I thought Australia handled that pretty well. As I said, much better bowling performance compared to the game against New Zealand. They did well to keep the pressure on England, take wickets when needed, and all the bowlers did their role. Mitchell Starc found his mojo back. He had a tough game against New Zealand, but he sort of broke it open at the start, getting the first 2 wickets of the innings, obviously removing Johnny Bairstow for a golden duck. First ball of the England innings was pretty good, caught down the leg side. And then Joe Root got him out, caught behind after a very successful review, which Marnus Labuschagne has taken credit for, and he was correct on that occasion. So I thought Mitchell Starc bowled well. He found his mojo back, which is good from an Australian point of view. Adam Zampa was good again. He bowled well, 3 for 21. Good to see Adam Zampa standing up, obviously leading wicket taker in the tournament now. After a couple of very tough games at the start of this tournament, he's come back well in the last 5 games to really bounce back and get the job done for Australia. And Pat Cummins bowled well, Josh Hazlewood bowled well, Stoinis bowled well at times when needed, and everyone did their role, which was good to see. I thought Pat Cummins captained well. He made the right decisions. He changed the field, good field placements. He brought himself on when he needed to take a key wicket, and he did. He juggled the bowlers around well. The bowling changes were spot on. So I thought Pat Cummins had a pretty good day out as captain. And also Australia's fielding was good again. Adam Zampa and Sean Abbott took some good catches. Australia's ground fielding was good. And they looked really on in the field, which is good signs for Australia, because that was lacking at the start of the tournament, the intensity in the field, but that's certainly picked up in the last few games. So overall, a pretty good bowling display from Australia, and there's still a lot of areas to improve on with the bowling, but I think the bowling group will be pretty happy about their efforts against England, and they'll be looking to improve and continue that improvement in the games to come in this World Cup. Let's preview England and Australia's next matches in this ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023. Talk about both teams' next games in this World Cup, what are the potential challenges, what they need to do to try and win their next game of this World Cup, also potential 11s they may select as well. So we'll start off with England. Their next game is against the Netherlands, and that will be at the MCA Stadium in Pune. That will be on the 8th of November, and plenty to play for England in that game against the Netherlands. Qualification for the Champions Trophy in 2025. Need to improve England, need to win their last 2 games, need to win this game against the Dutch to improve their qualification hopes for the Champions Trophy in what has been a very tough World Cup campaign for them. The Netherlands are going to be a challenge. They've played some good cricket in this World Cup at times. They're coming off a loss against Afghanistan by 7 wickets, but for the Dutch, they've already won 2 games in this World Cup. They had a good win against South Africa, and also had a good win against Bangladesh. So plenty to play for the Dutch as well. Qualification for the Champions Trophy. and looking for another scalp in this World Cup. They've already got one in South Africa. They could have another one in England. So both teams have plenty to play for in terms of this match. England definitely need a win to boost their confidence and just try and get something out of this World Cup. It's been a very horrid World Cup. It's been a failure, pretty much, for the defending champions. In terms of the potential 11 that they may select in this game against the Netherlands, obviously the England camp have said we don't really want to change the 11 too much. And a lot of people have said, well, now the World Cup campaign's over, now time to start building towards the future, obviously picking young players like Harry Brook in the squad, Gus Atkinson, etc. An opportunity for England to go down the youth path, given that this World Cup campaign is over. But they've decided to maintain the same 11 and keep the same structure. So I won't be surprised if they keep the same 11 for the next game against the Netherlands. So their potential 11 could be Bairstow, Milan, Root, Stokes, Butler, Ali, Livingston, Wokes, Willie, Rashid, and Wood. Let's preview Australia's next match, and that's going to be against Afghanistan for Australia. Their next game is against Afghanistan, 7th of November on Tuesday at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. Australia, they've won 5 games in a row. They'll be looking to win 6 games in a row to confirm a semi-final spot officially in this World Cup. So if they win against Afghanistan, Australia, it will officially confirm their qualification for the semi-finals. Going to be a challenge for Australia against Afghanistan. Afghanistan have played well in this World Cup. They've won 4 games in this World Cup, which is a fantastic achievement for the Afghanistan team. So it's going to be a challenge for both teams. Obviously a challenge for Australia, coming up against an Afghanistan team that have got confidence and momentum. They're coming off a good win against the Netherlands by 7 wickets. And also a good test for Afghanistan as well. Afghanistan's last 2 games in this World Cup, they've got Australia and South Africa, which are going to be 2 challenges for them. But I suppose it's a good thing to test themselves and really back what they've been doing in this World Cup in terms of how they've played as a cricket team. So definitely a challenge for both teams in this game, Australia and Afghanistan. But you would think based on current form and Australia starting to click towards the back end of this tournament, you would think Australia should be able to get the job done against Afghanistan and pretty much cement a semi-final place. In terms of the potential 11 for Australia that they may select against Afghanistan, obviously Mitchell Marsh and Glenn Maxwell are coming back. Mitchell Marsh missing out the game against England due to personal reasons. Glenn Maxwell missed out the game against England because of the accident with the golf cart, which caused him to have some concussion. So both of them are going to return to the 11. Obviously, Marcus Stoinis came back and Cameron Green for both of them. So you would think Australia will make 2 changes and Marsh will come back and Maxwell will come back for Green and Stoinis. So Australia's potential 11 against Afghanistan could be Head, Warner, Smith, Marsh, Labuschagne, Maxwell, Inglis, Cummins, Stark, Zampa, and Hazelwood. My final thoughts from this game between England and Australia to finish off our match review today on the podcast. It was a pretty good victory from Australia, building nicely towards the semi-finals. They've turned things around to win five games in a row after losing the first 2 games. The batting and bowling starting to click for Australia. They're starting to find their groove and mojo, which escaped them in the first 2 games of the tournament. So for Australia, it was a good win against England, the arch rivals and the old enemy. So it was good for Australia to win. They weren't at their fluent best with the bat in this game, but they did well to get it to a score of 286, which was competitive, and that was enough in the end because they bowled England out for 253. So I think they'll take a lot from that batting performance, knowing that we can grind it out and we can find a way. Even though the top order failed, but the middle order tried to stood up and, it wasn't at their fluent best, the middle order. They still have some problems, but they were able to get to a score which was competitive, which is the main thing. Also, the bowling group is starting to take wickets and starting to look threatening. which is good for Australia. On the other hand, with England, their nightmare continues in this World Cup. Another disappointing result. They can get some positives out of this game. They bowled well. At times, their batting was pretty poor at times. Their fielding was pretty good. They fielded pretty well. But they need to find something in the last two games, England, of this World Cup. They've got the Netherlands and Pakistan to finish their World Cup. Plenty to play for in the last two games for them in terms of qualification for the Champions Trophy in 2 years' time. They will need to bounce back quickly, England, but it was another disappointing defeat for them. But for Australia, on the other hand, as I said, another good victory. 2 more games for them to really cement their position in the top 4 and qualify for the semi-finals. So both teams had different performances in this game, but I think both teams will take a lot out of this game that they played against each other in this World Cup. Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode of the podcast. It's much appreciated. Stay tuned for more episodes of the ICC Cricket World Cup for 2023 on the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. If you're watching or listening to this episode of the podcast on our YouTube channel, let us know your thoughts on this match between England and Australia in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.